Welcome to Build Your Dream Business, brought to you by Solo. More than just a booking app, we're a community for independent pros in hair, beauty and wellness. I'm Katrina, here to bring you closer to real stories of success from the industry's finest and share practical advice to help your business flourish. At Solo, we understand the journey of working independently, and our goal is to connect, empower and inspire you. We're here to make sure that even though you work solo, you're never truly alone. In today's episode, we talk to Zaara King, a beauty business coach. We discuss focusing on client relationships, social media strategies, pricing, and maintaining work-life balance. Hi, Zaara. Welcome.
Hi, Katrina. Thank you so much.
Why don't you kick off by telling us how you got into the beauty business? How did you get started?
So I started in 2011 and I basically started off mobile. So I was working full time and I'd always wanted to be working for myself when I was younger, but I followed, sales and I needed money. So me and my other half wanted to buy a house. So long story short, we decided, I'd keep going in sales and I just kept going and kept earning the money that I needed. But then I got made redundant. So I was like, this is the push that I need to do what I wanted to do when I was a little bit younger. Because at the time, 2011, I was still only 20. So I wasn't exactly old, but you know what I mean. So I began my training and then started out mobile, and I did that for 4 years. I was mobile, going around, in the evenings alongside my corporate career. I was doing weekends. I was just working every hour under the sun, doing whatever I could. And then my brother-in-law opened a salon because my other half is a barber. He has a barber's and his brother has a barber's. And then, we kind of thought, well, let's do one for the girls. Yeah. So although that's not particularly true, is it? But you know what I mean? So it was like, right, let's do a sort of hair and beauty salon that was more for me and, the women. So he did that and he asked me to help out with the beauty side because obviously I knew it really well. And so I kind of ran the beauty side of the salon as much as I could around my full-time job. Everyone kind of came to me for things, and I sort of ran that side of things as much as I could. So I was there for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And then I had my little girl. And it was when I had her that I realized that I didn't necessarily want to still be in the salon. So then I decided to work a little bit in the salon, a little bit home-based. And then more of a long story short, I ended up home-based for the rest of my journey, if you like. And then after all of the lockdowns and after, still coming out on top and being fully booked and earning 4-figure weeks, I was like, you know what? I really want to help other people do it because I was seeing so much of I've lost my business, all my clients have gone, I don't know what to do, COVID this, COVID that. And I was like, you know what? It doesn't have to be this way. And I had obviously invested in myself so much with coaches and marketing things and like business coaching and things that I was like, I can help you do this, So, and I was already helping loads of people in my inbox or face to face. And I was just like, I need to do this properly. So that's when I became a coach, late 2020. And then I founded the Beauty Build in 2021. That was the community. And obviously I've been a coach for a few years now. I've been doing one-to-one, lots of one-to-one, lots of group coaching. Then I've kind of added on the podcast in 2023.
My goodness, what a journey. And that juggle at the beginning, running a salon alongside having a full-time sales job.
Literally.
How did you manage your time? How did you get clients in the salon? Because it was like a new branch of the barbers that you started.
So we relied heavily in the salon on the hair side of the business, bringing in a lot of the clientele. There was word of mouth, there was some footfall, and there was, the hairdressers that he'd taken on, employed, brought them in. They had their own clientele as well. And they built up that side of thing. The beauty side of the salon was very small. It was kind of like we had 2 chairs at the front where we could do some eyebrows and some lashes, and then we had a beauty room in the back so that I could do a little bit more intimate waxing, lash extensions. There was a nail desk, so there was quite a bit going on, but we relied heavily, I think at first, I'm not going to lie, I think he also relied heavily on my client base that I'd built up mobile. And it was quite scary, to be honest, because I had to tell all of my mobile clients, I'm going into salon and prices are going up and everything's going to change. And a lot of them stuck with me, thankfully. And then the people that did drop off, I gained that back, if you like, through the word of mouth, through the footfall, through the advertising and social media that we did back then. And I didn't do any of the marketing. I'm not going to lie. I didn't do any of that because I was working full time. So I did a lot of the training up the new beauty therapists when they came in, doing the trade tests when they were being interviewed. I was back to back on a Saturday and Sunday in there, working. So I was really busy with actually doing clients. If somebody had a complaint that was a beauty complaint, I would be the person that they go to and be like, Zara, what's going on? Yeah. I remember one night actually splitting my time on pen and paper and thinking, how am I doing all of this? I was thinking, right, well, I'm working these hours and then I'm going straight to the shop and I'm doing this. And then, it was just a case of literally getting pen to paper and going, where do I have to be? And then what can I do around my actual, what I like to call the non-negotiables?
I cannot get over the fact that you were literally running a salon while having a full-time job and, managing a team. That is incredible. You kind of touched on, training up therapists and things like that, and word of mouth being what initially got people in. I assume people kept coming back. How did you get people to keep coming back? Were there any kind of special touches that you employed? What did you teach the therapists to make sure that you kept getting a returning clientele?
So it was me and my sister-in-law. So my sister-in-law was managing the salon daily. So she was always in there overseeing, like she'd be at the front desk type thing, because I'd be at work in the day and then I'd come in the evenings and work, and I'd probably work a little bit later than the other girls and close the shop, and then I'd do this the weekend. So she was really in charge of going, right, we need a team meeting. The problem is with it was that side of the business, as in my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law, they weren't from the industry. But the thing that got them in the end, and this is actually a really good open discussion to have on here, I think, is it was the staffing issues. And that's why it's difficult to run a salon, because in the end, the reason why the salon no longer exists as it was is because we lost staff due to, maternities and all the rest of it. And because the people running the salon, obviously I dipped out when I went on maternity leave, and I probably shouldn't have done that. But for me, it was the best thing. At the time when we were really busy and it was doing really well, they were relying heavily upon the kind of therapists having a really good relationship with their clientele. So my sister-in-law would really encourage like having team briefings and team meetings and getting together and saying, well, this is what we're working towards. And it was a really fun family vibe. Everybody felt at home. There was no kind of cattiness. It wasn't like that. It was a very nice vibe. And the clients knew that too. So what we did was we focused on that as the USP. So when anything was going out on social media, it was like the family vibe. And so even as a client, I don't know if you've been there yourself. I certainly have. I've gone into a salon, had my hair done or beauty or whatever. And even as a client, you feel the vibe. It was all based around that. And that's why they kept coming back, in all honesty, and we did do offers and we did have things that were running every now and then at different seasonal periods. And, I did do separate loyalty things with my side of the clients on my side of the business, because ultimately I was still self-employed. And that's how it worked.
Making clients feel comfortable is so important. I think we can often forget how, for so many people, going into a salon can actually be quite a daunting experience, especially if you're someone who doesn't, always get treatments done. It can feel like a very alien space to be in. It's interesting how you said that you kind of put that across in your social media. What sort of things did you post to showcase that?
Yeah, it would be a case of actually in our captions and in the copywriting that goes alongside a Facebook post, for example, it would be within the language that we used about coming in, feeling at home, the atmosphere, the have a cup of coffee. We used to sprinkle the name of the salon on top of their coffee. They'd take a photo and then the name of the salon would go around in photos, that type of thing.
It's that sort of homeliness vibe.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you left and started your own business after becoming a mum. How did becoming a mum kind of impact your goals? Were you always planning on eventually going back to mobile? What was the kind of thinking there?
I really loved being in salon because being mobile around a corporate career was an absolute nightmare. I just felt like I was constantly on the go. I got so run down. I got really burnt out. And there were times, I've spoken about it before, where I didn't make it to my corporate job in the morning because I was that out of it. So run down. You think I've been on an all-nighter, but no. I loved being mobile up until a point, but then I really enjoyed the salon base because it was so nice to pick up tools and put down tools and just leave. So although I was leaving the salon and trying to like go back to myself, I didn't go mobile again. I stayed it at home. So anyone that wanted anything, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to set up at home. And this is where it comes down to like anyone listening, if you don't think you have the right professional setup, but you have the skill, just do it, because people will come. People will pay. Because, you know, I was like, well, guys, you know, I'm in my bedroom right now. I don't have the setup anymore. I've just had my baby and I'm on maternity leave. And if you want your lashes or your nails or whatever, the setup is really crap. And they'd be like, we don't care. We want you. And then they would come. So I think having Aaliyah, my little girl, it really made me understand that I want to do this for myself. I didn't want the corporate career anymore, even though I did go back. And I think it made me realize that I just wanted more time freedom.
That's such a good point. If I think of, you know, any of the professionals who I go to for beauty, hair, if they said to me right now, I'm going to be working from my bedroom, I'd be like, yeah, fine, absolutely, because I love what you do. And it's such a confidence thing in your craft, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think if you know that you've got that skill, you just do it. I didn't even think about the business side of things. I was like, I'm going to be mobile because it's all I can do. Or if somebody does want something from my house, then they can come. But, you know, it's going to be, let's just set it up, you know. So I think if you are a bit like, you know, worried, if you make it your USP, the fact that you can do it in whichever way you want to do it. It's either that you've built up a bit of clientele in one aspect. And so like me, they wanted me because I knew I was good. So it was the professionalism, it was the perfectionism. I was like, you know, you're going to get what you get with me anywhere. That was the USP at that point. But it always changes. But if you haven't built up that clientele, pick out some sort of USP about your setup or whatever, or your personality. And that can be it instead, because you don't have to be a big business owner, a salon owner, or have a specific premises sometimes to draw on some really important USPs.
I think it's such a case of imposter syndrome sometimes, isn't it? You think, you know, just because you're not a big business, just because you're not based in a high street salon, you kind of start underestimating how good you actually are. What advice would you have for professionals who are feeling that imposter syndrome and self-doubt?
Focus on what you know, which is that you are qualified in whatever treatment you do. That's the fact. And what is the fact when it comes to the imposter syndrome when you're scared of putting yourself out there on social media? The fact is, this is a tool to grow your business. That's the fact. And the fact is you need to use it because of X, Y, and Z. And you can build up your confidence by doing it with a little bit of fear involved and understanding nothing bad is going to happen. So you build up that confidence and you focus on the facts and you just crack on and get it done. And that way your confidence will continue to grow and it will get bigger and bigger until this becomes normality for you.
Yeah, the more and more you do something that's scary and nothing bad happens, your brain then understands that, oh, actually, this isn't a scary thing. Everything was fine.
Yeah, what was I worried about, you know?
How important was social media for kind of building your, I suppose, new post-baby home-based business?
So when I was mobile, I honestly didn't rely on social media at all. I relied upon my word of mouth, friends and family at first. That's not the quickest way to grow a business, don't get me wrong, but I didn't have the time on my hands because I was full-time in employment as well. So when you're part-time doing this, word of mouth can get you really far. It can fill your books in part-time hours. And then it was a case of relying on the people that I also worked with in my corporate setting. So to anyone out there, if you've got social media, you know, imposter syndrome, and you're better off talking to people in person, crack on and do that. Are you part of any clubs? Do you have a side job like I did? I don't know. Lots of people in this industry do. I was lucky enough to have all of that built up, and then the mobile clients came with me. So what I did was I used a business page on Facebook, and I remember doing things like cross-promote. I mean, it was years ago, but I remember cross-promoting from my personal page to my business page because I already had built up friends and like people I knew from different employments. I'd been around. Before I'd had Aaliyah, I'd already had so many jobs. I'd been a freelance fashion stylist assistant. I'd done windows for big department stores. I'd worked in retail, obviously, a couple of times. I'd also been in the sales career. And all of this. Now I was on maternity leave and I thought, well, there's so many people on my social media anyway.
Yeah, you know people. It's not like you don't know people.
That's it, right? You know people. And so it was cross-promoting from the personal to the business page to get the eyes on the business page. And then what I did was I relied heavily on that business page and sharing from it into like groups and the local places. And I relied on doing kind of 1 to 2 posts a day in there. That is what I did. it did become really important in answer to your question, because I think I needed to see how much of it I could push while I was on mat leave, while I'd obviously change things up.
I think it's so easy to forget that you do have like an existing network of people that you know just from, you know, other places of work. You do have an existing network, and you don't need to just go out and find completely new people that you've never met before in your life. You can start from that point that you already know.
Yeah.
Especially, and I know that obviously for a lot of people, if you move to a different area, it can be a lot trickier. But if you're based in an area where you're kind of, you know, a little bit more established, just socially, that can be a huge thing to work with already.
Also, when you touched on there about moving, some people in this industry, and this is why it helps so many people now, is because they think that when they get fully booked, that's it sometimes. And actually it's not, because people move. People move. Now, I would always say, like, people will travel to you a good 45 minutes, sometimes longer, like to an hour. If it's a 20-minute appointment for eyebrows, maybe not. But when you're fantastic at things like, you know, nails and just more things that take a bit longer, people won't want to go anywhere else, and they will travel with you. So if you're 45 minutes out, I mean, they'll probably still come. But yeah, people move. And so you always have external circumstances that will change your business, because we work in an industry where we need clientele. So external circumstances are a big deal to always remember that you have to still be on the ball with, like, trying to get clients and trying to put your name out there, I would say.
Going back to those Facebook posts, I think you said you've utilized Instagram as well. What was the kind of call to action in those posts? How did you make sure people seeing those posts actually turned into bookings, and that they were the right clients that you wanted to book in?
Originally, I did probably just do a post of the transformation, the before and the after, split down the middle, like you would do on like one of those collage apps on your phone. And Instagram was really just used as more of a portfolio. So the call to action would have been, I've got availability, you know, for X, Y, and Z, and you can book in by contacting me on the number or the DMs or whatever. Bear in mind, when I began 2011, Instagram had been around for a year.
It was a very different place. Yeah.
I wasn't on there as a business, right? But Facebook, yes. So obviously those call to actions would have been along the lines of, I have availability for this, book in. Now I know, after years of personal development and business development, that a call to action should really speak to your ideal client, and the actual post and the copyright in itself needs to be speaking to the ideal client. So for the last few years of my business, when I actually quit my full-time job and had to go full throttle, those were very different, because I had Aaliyah and then I went back to work for another year. So I was still building up the business at home alongside having the full-time job again and having a baby. And then that's when obviously I was like, now I need to quit. But I didn't just quit. I quit and got pregnant again with baby number 2. And so then, yeah, Facebook became a thing, and the copywriting and the call to actions were huge. I used to do a morning post with, it would be, I don't know, a treatment photo. So I'd normally try to keep it quite good with always showing people how good I was, really, because I was good at what I did and I knew that my pictures were good. And so, I mean, and the confidence with that, it just grew. I mean, back in the day, they weren't that great, but, you know, I got there and I was like, I'm good. But it would be a calling them out kind of heading, like a catching their attention hook, if you like, in the first initial post bit. And then I would give them full value about why this is good. It would be, are you in need of X, Y, Z? Do you need a little bit of me time? You know, has it come to the point where you've looked at your diary and you've realized all you've been doing is mumming and working for a few weeks, and now you need a little bit of you time? And I would focus heavily on the busy working mum, because that was what I was. So I would connect with them on that level as well. I now help people with the whole pillars of content, which is, you know, for me, it's connection, making sure you connect with your ideal client, making sure you show them you are the expert and you're the authority that they need. And then also showing them the social proof, meaning you get your clients the results that they want. So that's how I would do my posts. And then the call to action was always, don't forget, if you're new here, there's X, Y, and Z offer going on. So claim that at mybookingsystem.com. Or it would be, if I didn't want to be doing an offer at that time, it would always be call to action. You can book in at thisbookingapp.com. You know, it was always there. Even if there wasn't availability, there was always that link.
Yeah. And all pillared from kind of identifying who that ideal client is, so that you then know how to speak to them.
Probably started from the salon, and then it grew as I went as I went back home based. And then I built a purpose built room in my loft conversion of my home eventually. And that's where I was for like the last 4 years. I think it started back in the salon, and then I really nailed down my ideal client probably when I quit my full-time job in 2018 and cracked on with it then. Really got down to who is it that I want to come through my doors? Who is it that I want to sit in my chair? And I got down to the kind of nitty gritty with, well, what's their income level like? What do they do for a living? Who are they? Where do they hang out? Like what are they interested in? What do they value? Is it time in the instance where they need to save time? So they want you to be super efficient and super fast because that's one value of time. Or is it that they actually just love that kind of free flowing like time, like, you know, being really fluid? And so, yeah, mine was more, they were super efficient. They were businesswomen. They were, you know, busy. They had elder kids. So yeah, my ideal client changed over time, but it was always making sure I spoke to them in the copywriting of my posts. And it really, really helped.
And it must also impact, you know, how you conduct the treatment. You know, if you've established that your ideal client is somebody who's perhaps a bit more time short, you know, you perhaps, you know, make things a little bit speedier for them and you speak to them in a different way actually in treatment. So establishing that impacts your retention as well as getting them in the first place.
What you're putting out on social media these days, because obviously, you know, that's what we heavily rely on to market our business. But the market inside is super important. Get that right, but then don't follow that through in the salon. It's not going to keep people, is it? Because you're not really kind of giving them what they thought.
Yeah.
You know, you're putting in this effort with the marketing and the way you use this language. It has to be you. So don't go using AI, everyone. I mean, I didn't have it back then anyway, but don't go doing that.
Yeah, it's a confusing experience for the client, and ultimately it could be a disappointing experience. You know, you come in expecting one thing, expecting one approach, and it's something completely different. So all of that work, time, money that you put into gaining that new client, you can just drop the retention straight away.
Absolutely. And retention is the biggest thing in this business because, you know, I always tell people your business is a database of happy returning clients. That is what it is. It's not just constantly needing new. It's cheaper to actually retain.
What are your kind of tips for retention? Is it the same thing? Is it making sure that you're very much following, you know, how you're speaking to that ideal client?
So I think retention begins like with what we've said. It begins by knowing who that ideal client is. You have to reverse engineer things, don't you? So it begins there. And then it's bringing them through a journey. So it's actually thinking about the experience that they have before they meet you and then the experience they have with you, but then stop forgetting that there's also an experience as soon as they've left you. So you have this type of client person here that's just left, and you can't forget about these people. This is where the nurturing process has to happen. This is where you have to keep in touch, or, you know, you have to give them an upsell. If you don't hear from them, then they go into a different type of client category, right? There's all these different type of client categories that you need to try to get into and keep building a relationship with. And you have to see it as that. You have to see it as a relationship and where it is at, because even if somebody's been to you, their awareness level of you, like their comfort level with you, could still be really, really low if they're not very quick to open up, you know? So I think you have to remember that there are stages. So things like I did were like a lucky dip, loyalty type program. So I never like to give big discounts. Eventually, I've made all the mistakes. I've done the loyalty cards with £5 off and £10 off and all that. I've done all that. But actually what works and what is better and what I know now is, you know, loyalty programs that are a little bit different. So having things like I had like a lucky dip, which upselled to them, but it gave them value. So it was better for my business and it was also better for them as a client because they weren't just coming in for their 7th appointment and having money off because they were coming anyway, you know. And don't get me wrong, people do love a little bit of discount. So throw that in at whenever you want. It's your business. But if you can't afford to and you're not going to be in profit, don't do it. Don't fall into that trap where you have to do it to retain clients because you don't. It could be that you do, like I'm saying, a really good loyalty program. It could be that when they're with you, that experience that I was talking about is super personal to them. It has to match your USPs that you shout about online. It has to match the language that you use and the vibe that you give. And then, yeah, when they leave you, how are you keeping in touch? And this is also a part that people miss. You know, there are so many things that they can do to retain their clients after they've left. And even if they haven't been back 3 to 6 months, there are so many things they can do to retain clients. For example, I used to send birthday emails. I used to always entice with an upsell or add-ons and things like that for their birthdays. I used to do the loyalty program I touched on. I used to do a very good referral program, which would teach people in my programs. There's so many things for retention, you know.
I feel like marketing can so often be a really good alternative for just discounting. You're still keeping yourself front of mind for that client without necessarily needing to give them a huge chunk of money off to get them back in.
Absolutely. And then if they haven't been in 3 to 6 months, you send them something like, you know, we do miss you. Then to give them a discount if you're in profit and if you can. But that all comes down again to making sure that you are in profit with every service, because a lot of people in this industry, they're not, you know, they're just not.
Which brings me on to another important topic, pricing. We often sort of, you know, speak with our solo members about having a bit of a fear of increasing pricing when you kind of do need to. You know, people calculate what their hourly rate is, and it turns out if they're putting themselves on minimum wage and they find it so hard to put their prices up because they have that super close relationship with their clients. How did you approach price increases?
I used to absolutely hate it. 20-something-year-old me would have really, really hated it. I think I learned from a lady who was fantastic and her prices were high. So when I first initially trained, and it was an independent training college type thing that I trained with, I actually booked in for a few of her treatments. And I was like, I need to know why people pay these prices. Right. So I think pricing begins with your perception of the industry, your perception of the value that you get. And it starts with you. It starts with how you feel about what you are giving, like the service. So first of all, you need to pay the prices that you want to charge, I believe. So if you're the type of person that would be like, oh, I'm not going to go and pay 60 quid for a set of nails. Well, then how do you expect to earn a decent living doing it yourself? Right. And I get it all the time because I work with beauty pros who want to be charging those prices. They have the money signs in their eyes. They want a big business, but then they say, well, I'm not going to go and pay £40 plus for a set of nails. And I'm like, why? Because I can't afford it. Why can't you bloody afford it? Because I'm not charging. Right. Well, here we go. I hated it. I get it. But again, I put myself out there. I made sure I was understanding why are people paying these prices. And I was going to the people paying it because I was like, I want to be there. So instead of looking at the people that are cheaper than you, that you probably will be doing, stop doing that. Start looking at the people that are ahead of you. Start looking at the people that charge more, pay those prices yourself, build up that confidence and just do it. Now, if you realize, if you look at your pricing and your profit margins and they're not big enough, up the price. If you've just done a training and you've upped your skills, up your prices. If you have realized that you're paying yourself minimum wage and you're not actually able to afford your own personal bills and you're living expensive, up your prices. If you're fully booked, up your prices. Okay. Those are my 4 things for you to do. If you're in that position, you're ready to up your prices. And if you're scared, like I said, you need to just look at the people ahead of you. And you need to remember that this is business. It's not personal. There's so many reasons, more than enough reasons for you to do it. And I think I don't want people to just think it's April, I need to up my prices. I think they need to do those things that I've said, you know, have I just done some new skill training? Have I just laid out for something really big in the business? Am I fully booked? Am I not in profit? Right. Now, one of the things I also tell my clients, and they laugh, but they do it and they love it, is I say, blame your accountant.
I love that.
If you've got to put your prices up and it's a big jump, because sometimes it is, either I say to people, look, you want to get there by the end of working with me, right? You want to get up to this price after we've done this training together. So what's the jump? Cut it in half and do it in 2 increments. If you can't do it like that in sort of 2 or 3 increments, then just do whatever you can do and blame your accountant and just say, he looked at my books or she looked at my books and I wasn't in profit. I've got to up my prices.
That's nice, isn't it? You're kind of putting a little bit of distance between you and the client almost, but you're still increasing your prices. You're still doing it. You're still taking the plunge.
It's because it isn't personal. It is business. But I do understand it's so hard because you love that person. You're like, Katrina, I've done your hair or your nails forever and I love you so much, but you now need to pay me 20% more every time. I get it. I do get it. But that's also why you have to be careful with how close you get to your clients. You do. And, you know, unless you can be really super close and still maintain that level of confidence and go, right, these are the prices, because you've got to do it. It's just business. And if they love you, they'll want you to be earning a decent wage.
And I think that's a huge thing, isn't it? You hear people putting up their prices and you ask them, did the terrible thing of losing all your clients that you thought was going to happen? No, because I do have a good relationship with my clients. So the thing that they thought was stopping them from putting their prices up is the thing that made it completely okay, because you've got a good relationship. They love you. They've been coming to you for years. Of course, they're not going to leave. And if they do, then they weren't the right client for you.
What we want to do eventually is earn more and work less. So if we're doing that, and that's the goal, we want a couple of them to drop off anyway. But if they do and you want to fill that slot, you'll fill it with an ideal client, because you'll be marketing the prices at the price point that you're at now. So you'll be attracting the people that can afford that now.
You sort of touched on, I know that it's quite a, big pillar for you, earning more and working less. It's huge, isn't it? Overworking ourselves because we're, taking really tiny profit margins and having to work all hours of the day. How did you kind of come to realizing that you do need to work less? How did you start realizing you need to prioritize your personal life as well?
I think with me, I am a runner and a sprinter type thing. So I get really burnt out really fast. So I always bite off more than I can chew. I always want everything now, not even yesterday. I got to the point myself in business as well. I was running another business. I was doing baby clothes and printing designs on.
Stop it.
Yeah, honestly, I was doing all sorts, because when I'd had the babies, when I had Aaliyah, me and my cousin, we were like, oh, you know what we could do? We could do this. And we did. And we made money and we did it. I think what led me to need to slow down and earn more and work less was the kids. That was the thing. If I didn't have kids, God knows where I'd be. I would be really, really successful probably, but I would be really tired, even more than having babies, because I would push myself to that limit with every ounce of me and every minute of the day that I have. Even now, my husband's telling me all the time, stop, slow down. You don't need to keep doing this, like relax. But I think anyone out there that thinks anyone out there that thinks there's not enough money at the end of the month and you're still thinking like, but I work freaking hard, you need to have a look at this. You need to think about how you can earn more and work less. You really do. Because time and your health is the real, winning. All of this money side of things, right? It just facilitates that. So if you're working every minute, there's no point. If you're tired and run down and you're not healthy, there's no point.
It ultimately has a knock-on effect on, your performance at your work as well. So if you're not taking that time out to, look after yourself and prioritize other things outside of just grafting, you're not going to be able to graft like that forever. It's impossible to keep up.
Yeah, it is impossible to keep up. And you resent the clients as well at some point. I remember sitting in the salon and thinking, I really can't be bothered to do such and such today, her eyebrows or her lashes. And I remember even thinking that, when I went home based and when everything worked for me, I was so glad that I'd done what I'd done. I was glad to have made the hard decisions to up the prices and to be really clear on my hours and my policies and my boundaries, because it felt so hard. I felt so proud as well. And so it just had such a good effect on everything. And even your clients love you for that. So when you're putting yourself first, when you are thinking, oh, I deserve to earn more and also have time freedom as well, they love you for that too, if they're the right type of people.
That's so interesting. I think there's a real power of doing those scary things. You say that you felt proud about, having taken that step to up your prices and putting in those boundaries. It gives you a strength, doesn't it? Sort of looking back and thinking, I did that. I thought I couldn't do that. I thought I couldn't do the scary thing of putting my prices up, but I did. So onwards and upwards, I'm a stronger person than I thought I was.
And it all comes down to what I said at the beginning. If you know you're good at your skill, you can do what you want. I'm not telling people to go out there and be ridiculously obnoxious or there's service levels and there's skill levels, but you can dictate to your clients. It's your business. I think the problem in this industry is that people forget that, and it's because we're in a people pleasing role.
You touched upon, putting in boundaries. What did you do? Did you, say you're only working certain hours? Did you, just only put people through a booking system so that you don't get those endless DMs in the middle of the night like many people do? What did you do practically to ensure you had boundaries between your work and your home?
I was open to adaptation all the time. So because of me, my life would change. But when I would tell you these are the hours, they were the hours. Again, it comes back to your perception of the industry. If you think this industry isn't super business minded, super, professional and all the rest of it. And you run your business really like, oh, you can cancel and I've got cancel and then don't expect to do what I'm telling you to do and don't expect it to work because you're running your business slightly differently. But if you're being professional and you're attracting people that appreciate a professional business, then it's quite easy for you to dictate, these are the hours I'm going to do. But then when they change, you are well within your rights to go, right, they're changing, but then obviously this is what it is. And it's fine because it will stay this way for X amount of time. And I'm 100% confident in that. So the hours were set, but if I did need to work out of hours, there would be an additional cost. I wouldn't just work out of hours for free anymore. I would always say, well, that's going to take us over. If somebody wanted to book and they'd say, oh, Zaara, I've been on the booking system. You've only got 6 o'clock, but I want a full set. I'd say, well, that's going to take an additional hour. So it's going to be at X amount. And then I'd have to put it through manually. That's a little bit more admin as well. So why am I not going to charge any extra? Then it would be the cancellation policies and the deposits and the no-show policies and things that I enforced to make sure that I was never out of pocket and not losing sleep over it. Because you do in this industry, you start thinking, well, now I'm down 100 quid, 200 quid this week. What now? And it's not enough time to fill a slot when somebody cancels within 48 hours. It's not a magic wand that we have to go, oh, hi, social media, this is the slot. Now come and take it. And it always gets taken. It doesn't. So you have to have policies. I did a 50% deposit on every single booking. I thought that's the most fair way to do it because it meant that somebody that was paying, taking up more of my time and sort of their services were longer and more expensive was paying a bigger deposit than someone that only took up 20 minutes of my time and had a cheaper appointment. I also did a minimum spend, so people couldn't book silly little appointments because although I was a fully qualified beauty therapist and could do small things like a quick brow thread or a quick whatever, I wouldn't wake up for that. I wouldn't set up my beauty room for that.
For 5 minutes, yeah.
So there was a minimum spend. There was obviously a booking system. They had to do it all themselves. They had to tick the boxes to say that they agreed to all of the terms and conditions, which were, you pay the 50% up front and that the booking system dealt with all of that for me. And then it would be, the T's and C's would pop up and it would say, we really appreciate your appointment. You're this to us, you're that to us. It would all be very lovely towards the client because we love them so much. And then it would be, if you do need to, because we understand things happen, then give us 48 hours notice and we'll move your deposit. If it's less than 48 hours notice, unfortunately, you're going to lose that deposit. And if you no-show me on the day, I will charge your card the full amount. And that is that.
It's all reasonable. It's also easy to implement. And it's so much easier than the stress of, oh God, I've just tried to be super nice and people pleasing to someone. Now I've lost out on half a day's income. You can automate these things.
Absolutely. And that is what people should be doing, is automating. They wonder how to get to the next level of business. Well, you have to invest in yourself and your business. You can't just be you now. Who you are now is able to hold this level of business that you have now. You need to change. You need to change your views. You need to change as a person. You need to grow. And then your business will grow with you. It's not going to grow before you. It won't outgrow you. Otherwise, it won't make it. People sometimes say, well, I don't want to pay for a booking system. And I'm like, well, how dare you? How do you think the booking system people that put that together are going to earn a living if you don't pay them?
I couldn't agree more.
Why should they give you that booking system for free? Why? And it's just changing their perception of it, isn't it? Again, because so many people in this industry do it for a hobby. And that's how it starts off. I did it as something on the side for 4 years and another couple of years. So I get it. When you want to get to the next level of business, these are the things you have to do.
Yeah, treat your business like a business.
Proper business, yeah.
We always ask this question on the podcast. What was your biggest fear before deciding to take the plunge to work for yourself?
Not having enough money. It was not having enough money to live. My sales career paid me a very decent wage and bonuses and all the rest of it. And yeah, it was lovely income. And so although I'd worked for myself part-time for many years alongside, it was a good 6-7 years before I quit my full-time job. And I do wonder what would have happened if I had just not taken another sales role when I got made redundant and I'd just gone full throttle with the beauty business and made it work. Because when you need to make something work, you make it work. So yeah, I do wonder what if, but I'm also not in regret of anything. I think it's all turned out really well for myself and my family. So I'm happy. I was worried that I wouldn't get things like my maternity leave pay, sick pay, holiday pay, all them things. And then I thought, well, actually, if I incorporate that into my costings and into my business, I will be fine. I'll be just fine. So yeah, That was what held me back. That's my biggest fear. And even to this day now, I still worry. What if it just stops tomorrow, or like I don't sell anything ever again?
Yeah, it's always there, isn't it?
I think I always say to people, even the people ahead of you, they worry. They're still scared. It's just different challenges and stuff that come up for people at different stages. But the worries and things, they don't ever really go away.
I mean, it's a human survival thing, isn't it? To worry about where your, next meal is coming from. Can you put a roof over your head? And I think that's no reflection on you or how well you're doing. It's just your brain wanting you to survive, essentially.
It tries to keep us safe. So sometimes when something feels a little bit too scary or out of our comfort zone, or like, we've not done that before, the brain is like alarm bells. You can't do that.
There's no tiger. It's just sending an email. It's fine. You can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, nothing bad's going to happen.
If you could go back to yourself at the beginning of your journey, when you first started doing your mobile treatments, what advice would you give yourself?
Oh, I'd say up your prices first and foremost. Don't be so silly. I'd also say the policies and the boundaries. So, because those are the two things that really made my business what it was, it's most successful. So I would say prices need to be on point. You need to actually work them out properly. No one taught me that. No one said to me when I learned. I mean, the woman I learned from, she never taught me how to break things down, and she didn't need to because she wasn't teaching me business. But that is what I would say to anyone that's starting out. And if I was telling myself, know your costs. You need to know your costs so that you make a profit. And then you need to have cancellation policies and deposit policies and all of the rest of it straight away.
Brilliant. I think those are fantastic takeaways to finish on. Thank you so much, Zaara. It's been so interesting chatting. And I think so much inspiration for people to at the prices, know their worth. You are good enough. You're brilliant. Thank you so much, Zaara. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me. It's been lovely. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favourite podcast app. If you like the episode, why not leave a review or share it with a beauty industry friend? And if you're curious about Solo, you can download it for free on the App Store or Google Play and take advantage of our free trial.